right. Welcome to Theology Thursday. This is where we take one topic real quick and address it. And I want to start by talking about misconception of God. And that is, does God have a body? Now think about this for a minute. When you picture God, what comes to mind? Is it the old guy with the big white beard, kind of a Michelangelo picture, or Zeus holding a thunderbolt? Is that the picture that comes to mind? Because after all, Genesis does say that God created man in his image. Well, there's just one problem. John 4:24 says, God is spirit. That means he's not limited by a human body. As a matter of fact, Psalm 139 says that he asked the question, where can I go to get away from your spirit? Can I go up to the sky? Can I go under the earth? Can I go to the east? Can I go to the west? He says there's nowhere I can go to get away from you, God, because God's not limited by a body. Now you might say, hey, wait a minute. What about those verses in the Bible where it talks about human characteristics of God, like the everlasting arms in Deuteronomy chapter 33, or where it talks about God's eyes moving to and fro around the earth to find those whose hearts are his in 2 Chronicles 16. Well, here's the thing about that. It's metaphorical language. And the Bible uses metaphorical language to speak about God all the time. In Psalm 91, the psalmist mentions God gathering people together with under the protection of his wings and using his feathers as refuge. In Psalm 84, it compares God to the sun. Now there's nobody who goes around and says God is a chicken or God is a sunbeam, because we understand those things to be metaphorical. We understand that language to be a comparison, to give us a greater sense of understanding about who God is. Well, it's the same thing with these human analogies that are mentioned throughout the scripture. So it's not that God has a body, but it's that he compares it to something that we can understand so we can better have an understanding of who he is. Now, you still might say, hey, what about that verse you already mentioned about human beings being created in the image of God? What about that? Okay, good point. But understand this, that what that verse really is getting at is that we can think, we can create, we can love, and we can make choices like God. That's what it means to be created in God's image. It doesn't mean that God had a body so he made us to look like him. No, that's not it at all. What the scripture clearly outlines is that God's not a man. He's not a person. It's Numbers chapter 23 says God is not a man. 1 Samuel 15, again, God is not a man. So we clearly see that God is spirit, and God is not limited by a human body and the human constructs that we have in our physical beings. Okay? So here's the important thing to take away. God is spirit, and he is not limited by a human body.